What's up guys, I'm Chris from Trail Tubes, and today I'm going to show you how to turn Trail Tubes pre-bent tube door kit into a set of tube doors, and I'm going to be doing that on a Jeep Wrangler TJ. So the first step is taking the framing square, and you want to go ahead and measure the top of each hinge on the framing square, and then we put a little line on so you know exactly where the hinges are. And the reason we're using the framing square is so that we can line the tube up and get a perfect 90-degree angle when we lay it out on the tubes. Once you've made the marks on your framing square to where the top of your hinges are, you're going to go ahead and lay your tubes out on the floor with your framing square. And now what we did here is we have the bottom of the framing square is parallel with your lower tube, and we line that up with the mark, and then that should be perpendicular to the edge of your upper tube. And then we also line that one up on the mark. And this placement is important because once you get these lined up, this is where you're going to tack it on. Because at this point, the top of each of these tubes is in line with the top of your hinges. Once you have everything exactly how you want it, you're going to go ahead and tack it in place. Once you have your top tube welded onto your lower tube, you want to go ahead and put it in the door frame to make sure everything lines up. And remember, when you put your tube onto the door frame, you want to be in the furthest recessed part of the door frame. So it will be right on this one right here. And you go ahead and you line it up, put it in there, and the lower tube should line up with the top of the lower hinge, and the upper tube should line up with the top of the upper hinge. And if it sits right like that, you've done it correctly. Once you've made sure that everything lines up on your tubes, you're going to want to go ahead and take the cross tube and tack that in. And when you line that up, the top of the cross tube should be lined up with the top of your lower tube where it curves up. So it will sit right like that. It should be lined up right across the top there. And once that's in place, you can go ahead and tack it together. Once you have everything tacked together, you want to go ahead and put the door up with some clamps to make sure it's right exactly where you need it. And then what you're going to do is make straps. So what the straps will do is they'll go right here, and they'll be part of the hinge, which we're about to build after we have the straps done. So what we have for this strap is it's going to be 2 inches tall. I don't know if this flips it, but it's going to be 2 inches tall, 4.5 inches long, and then it can either be a straight or a curve or however you want to make it. Creative liberties. And that's going to go right here. We're going to go ahead and weld that on here, and then weld the rest of the hinge to that. Once you've drawn your design on your cardboard, you're going to go ahead and cut it out, and then you're going to trace that onto the metal. And once it's on the metal, you can cut it out of the metal, and then you'll have your strap. Once you've drawn out your design on the metal, you're going to want to go ahead and cut it. And we're going to use a plasma cutter. You could use a torch, a jigsaw, sawzall, pretty much whatever you have on hand to cut it. As long as you get the 90-degree bend correct, that's the most important part. Once you have your strap cut out of the metal, ours is a little rigid because we did it with a plasma cutter, so we're going to go ahead and grind the edges down before we actually measure it up on the doors themselves. The next step is we're going to go ahead and make our hinge or our pin and barrel, and that's going to be on the actual hinge. And what we did is we're using a 3/8 piece of rod and a half-inch piece of tube with the inside diameter at 3/8. And you can pick both of those up at Home Depot, Lowe's, pretty much any hardware store. So we went ahead and we measured out the inner part, which is the rod, to the same height as the rod on the stock door, and then we went ahead and marked it. And then we did the same thing with the tube on the upper part of the door, measured it to the same height there, went ahead and marked it right there. So then we have both of our marks, and we're going to go ahead and cut it down to size. So now that we have the two components for our pin and barrel, we're going to go ahead and put the pin inside of the barrel, line it up at the top, and then weld it all together. The final product for the pin and barrel should look something like this. Once you have your pin and barrel, you're going to go ahead and take your strap and you're going to line it up exactly where you want it on your pin and barrel and on your door. So it should look something like that. And once you have it where you want, you're going to go ahead and tack it in place on the Jeep so it doesn't move. The next step, once you have your pin and barrel tacked onto your strap and your strap tacked onto your door, you want to go ahead and get everything lined up on the hinge. And what you will do is line everything up, and then you're going to take your pin piece and you're going to put that on the hinge like so. And then you will go ahead, take like a pencil and make a mark around where the base of that is. As you can see, we already did that here, and then we tapped the hole in that. And you're going to go ahead and drill that out with a hole large enough to fit the base of your latching mechanism. The final hole should allow your pin mechanism to fit directly inside of it like so. The next step is once you've drilled your hole into the tube, you want to go ahead and take a center punch, and you're going to mark the center of the back side of the inner tube, and then you're going to go ahead and drill that out to the same size as your bolt. And that's the bolt that came with the hinging mechanism. Once you've drilled your hole on the back side, you're going to go ahead and assemble everything, which the hinging mechanism in there, bolt back through, and then you just go ahead and screw it on like so. And once it's in there, you just go ahead and shut it on the door to make sure everything lines up correctly. So it should be right like that. And when you close it on the door, you just want to go ahead and make sure everything lines up here. We might have to raise this just a little bit. And once it's lined up there, you're going to mark your bolt with a pencil, and then you want to slightly cut the bolt down. And the reason for that is so that this pin can go all the way on the other side, and you'll have a slight adjustment on this end, and then we're going to weld this end of the bolt. And that'll allow you to adjust the hinging mechanism to the hinge so that the door doesn't rattle at all. So once you have your bolt welded on the back side, that allows you to adjust your hinging mechanism on the front side, so you can tighten it up or you can loosen it depending on where your latch is. So once you close it, and you have the pin inside, your door doesn't rattle at all. The final step is you're going to go ahead and trace out this circle onto your metal, and then you're going to cut out 3 of these little circles for the caps of your tubes. And you're going to go ahead and have one for here, one for here, and one for here. So we have our 3 holes traced onto this piece of metal, and this is a 14 gauge piece of steel, and we're going to go ahead and cut these out with a plasma cutter, grind them down, and then weld them onto the edges of the tube. So you should have 3 little end caps that look just like this, and what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and put them on the end of each tube, tack them on, grind them down so it's a perfect circle, and then once you have those on, you can go ahead and weld everything else up, and you're all set. So this is what the final product ended up looking like, and we went ahead and we welded the ends just so obviously nothing can get in there. And when you buy the kit, it actually comes with a plastic piece, and you can either use that or you can just weld it. We just went ahead and welded it for the strength factor, but there's really nothing wrong with the plastic piece. And then pretty much after this, all that's left is grinding everything down, making it look as smooth as you want it, and there you go. The only piece that should be able to move is your latching mechanism, so you can adjust it and make it tighter on the door. But other than that, everything's sturdy. It'll hold up to some abuse.